All right, let's continue here. Derek J. has a story to share out of Florida where one government school teacher is not doing what she's told.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Both my parents come from the world of public education, and I hear stories anecdotal about all of this standardized testing, and it always seems to be more and more every year.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was in school, being introduced to these standardized tests, it was like, wait, learning stops for a little while. And we get to watch movies sometimes during the day, and we're eating popcorn and eating peanuts and stuff. I thought it was really strange. And then, you take these tests for an hour or two. It's like a weird break from the regular school day, and instead you're doing state mandating testing. Well, one kindergarten teacher said, I've had enough of this. We've done enough with the state mandated tests. We do... I think she lists over 20 different state-mandated tests already, and now they're introducing another one.
And this is the state of Florida, not a Fed test.
Yeah, that's correct. This is a Florida test, and it's called the FAIR test. It's an acronym.
I suspect it's anything but.
Yep, and this one, it's particularly annoying to her, or she thinks it's disruptive to the learning process because it can require 30 to 60 minutes of sit-down time one-on-one with the teacher helping the students fill out this test, which happens on a computer. So if the student, for example, double-clicks the mouse and skips a question, there's no way to go back. And so it's real clunky, this test. It's going to be very time-consuming. And, of course, while the teacher's giving this standardized test one student at a time, what's the rest of the class doing? I mean, you're going to have to
eating popcorn, I guess.
You're going to have teachers team up. This could take hours. It could take about an hour per student. You got a class of 25. That's going to take all week or several weeks. So here's the story from WashingtonPost.com, where Valerie Strauss writes, teachers are increasingly speaking up about the onslaught of standardized tests that students in all grades, including kindergarten, are required to take in public schools today.
My son goes to a school, they just run around outside.
Yeah.
Well, some are refusing to administer the tests, which can result in a teacher being dismissed for a breach of contract.
Wow.
Here is a letter from a Florida kindergarten teacher, Susan Bowles of Lawton Shills Elementary School in Gainesville, Florida. She posted this to Facebook to the parents of the students in her class, detailing the tests she's expected to get.
Lawton Childs.
Okay.
But that's a politician. Who the hell knows who these people are?
I was running it through my head.
We happen to know because we live there.
I'm just trying to think if there was another. Was it a hyphenated name?
I should have asked before giving the story, but thank you for the correction. So she writes this letter on Facebook.
He's a former governor.
Parents.
Whoopie-doo.
Okay, great. She writes a letter to the parents of her students and posts it on Facebook. So that's pretty cool. She's pretty progressive. She explains that she will no longer give the Florida Assessment for Instruction in Reading, or FAIR, test to her students anymore, even if it cost her her job.
Incredible.
She gave permission to publish it, so here it is. By the way, she's getting a lot of support on Facebook. Here's what she wrote. To the parents of the boys and girls in my class, I wrote you a letter over the weekend to let you know I'm refusing to administer the FAIR test to your precious little ones. I had hoped to send you an email or letter, but it would not be professional of me or allowed by the school district for a letter to go out letting you know I'm doing something that's a breach of contract and therefore against the law. I want you to know that for the 26 years I have been a classroom teacher, I have been a good employee, and I have always complied with my superiors. I want you to know that this is not in any way being done because our principal or superintendent are mandating these tests. This is a government issue. So this decision does not involve anyone I work for. It is an act of civil disobedience. I am hoping for government change in policy regarding testing. That's her letter. So
she couldn't send the letter. She had to post it to Facebook?
Well, that's her explanation to Facebook. She actually has a letter that she comprised, and that has been listed. It's quite a lot longer. She goes into detail about all of these different tests that the students have to administer. I'll rattle off just a couple. She says there's math benchmark tests. There are 3 of these. There are reading unit tests. Beginning this year, end-of-course tests are required for all students, K through 12. There are discovery education tests. There are 4 of these each year. I mean, the list goes on and on. So she's saying, we don't need another one. It takes up too much classroom time. I've been teaching for 26 years, and I just want to teach my students.
Yeah.
I don't want to be some lackey for the government.
You know, it's not like she bugged out on the first standardized test that came through. Just the most unwieldy and stupid one to come along. I have to say I stand with her. It's not the most principled stand in the world, but I mean, likely you didn't get to be a kindergarten teacher by being terribly principled. Obviously,
well, also people don't find their principles on the first day of their job either. I mean, sometimes it takes a while for you to realize something's really wrong here. I've had enough of this, you know? So it builds up, right? One test builds on another test and builds on it, and it gets more burdensome over time. And you finally realize that you're willing to do something about it. So good for her.
There's been a response from the superintendent of the public schools, and it may not be what you expect. Quote, with all of the recent media attention surrounding the decision by local teacher Mrs. Susan Bowles not to give the state-mandated FAIR test to her students, I wanted to ensure that parents, teachers, and other citizens understand the district's position on this issue. So here it comes.
Okay.
I've met personally with Mrs. Bowles, and I praise her as an excellent teacher. She blah, blah, blah. She's never been on our bad side. I'm going to skip to the bottom to let you know that they say, in the meantime, this is the grand conclusion, I would encourage anyone who has issues with the FAIR test in particular, or testing in general, to contact their local legislators and other state leaders. The school board has shared its concerns with these leaders for several years, as have I. However, they need to hear from you, the parents and citizens, on this very important issue. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to work.
You don't think that they're going to care?
No, they don't care. As he said, he's the superintendent of the schools, and he's been speaking to them for years. Yeah.
So he's not firing her, though?
No, not firing her.
And it would have to be him who fires her, right?
Like it seems to me that, yes, he is in the position of authority over Mrs. Bowles, and he is not firing her. Just wants her to comply with the law, but who knows what's going to happen.
Derek J., was there more to say about the Florida story with the teacher?
No, just that I think she's awesome, and, you know, she's getting a lot of support from parents and teachers on Facebook and other social media. I just
Are there haters? Does she have people who are on the attack, or is it just like all over support?
I'm sure there are haters, but the articles that I've read don't mention them, and it really seems to be more overwhelming support than anything. I think, you know, there's like an incentives problem here with the standardized testing, and it's the kind of incentive problem that often comes from government where they don't have a release valve, or they don't have a mechanism for any feedback for, are we doing too much?
People are not liking this, but they're not stopping.
Yeah, are we getting in your way? I mean, are we intruding here?
Teachers are complaining.
On education?
Administrators are complaining. Parents are complaining. But
years.
They keep adding new tests.
Yeah, they just keep going. So it takes someone like Susan Bowles to say, I'm not going to administer this test. I'm just not going to do it.
And she put her job on the line.
Yeah,
she's a brave woman.
Yeah, 26 years as a kindergarten teacher. It's not like she's saying, you know, I just started this job and I can lose it and I don't have some pension on the line.
That's a great point.
She's got a serious risk here.
She's 4 years away from that pension, and usually it's pretty hard to get fired as a government bureaucrat. But if you, as she's saying here, breaks her contract and refuses to do what she's instructed to do by the state, her masters, then they could probably break her contract at that point, and then she wouldn't receive whatever the pension would be. So yeah, a lot of teachers in her position would just hunker down and they do what they're told because they just want to collect the pension.
Yep. Why wouldn't they?
Hey, when you're so close to all that money, I mean, why not just keep your head down and yeah, exactly.
Go along to get along. So I agree that she's heroic for doing that. It'd be nice if we saw more people within the structure, the institutions of the state actually standing up for whatever it is they believe in. And
yeah.
She may not give a whit about freedom, but at the very least she cares about the freedom to do her educating in the way that she wants.
Especially the people in the Gainesville area, because that's where she's located. Like, I think it would mean more if administrators and teachers in her school district decided if they were also not going to administer
jump on
their
board.
test. Yeah, like it would be great to see other peaceful resistors everywhere.
Yeah.
But specifically there would be, I think, optimal, because it would send the strongest message to
I
say,
agree.
like, hey, we're in this together. She's not alone. She's not some lone voice over
Then
here.
the Department of Education or whatever it is in Florida, up in Tallahassee, is getting the message. It looks like we're losing Gainesville.
Yeah,
You know,
we're
like-
losing a lot of teachers. I mean, because if it's just one putting up a resistance, you could be replaced.
Sure.
It's easy to replace one teacher. But when it's 5 or 10,
A whole
then
department.
that
Yeah.
starts to get, you might sweat a little bit if you're a bureaucrat who has to fill those seats. So I would love to see more peaceful resistance in this area. Congratulations, Susan.
Yeah, it's interesting because the administrator or superintendent, I think is the word, he actually wrote a letter about this and essentially affirmed that he's not going to fire this lady, which I think is interesting because she is standing alone. He's not going ahead and taking the axe to her.
Yeah.
And he does have sort of two different masters in a way, right? Like he does, I guess in theory, the Department of Education is above him. The superintendent's the highest boss in Gainesville, but above him there probably are several bureaucrats at the state level. However, he's likely hired by the school board in the area. If it's anything like it is here in New Hampshire, it's the school board that kind of does the hiring and the firing of
I think that's how it works in most
superintendents
areas.
and things like that. So ultimately, if he upsets too many parents, there is the chance he could lose his job. So on one hand, he doesn't want to cross the boundaries and upset too many parents by firing this lady. On the other hand, he still has to juggle the political ramifications of what might happen from the state level. But it seems like he's made the choice and has sided with the local folks rather than the people in the state.
Fear breeds fear. Courage breeds courage.
Sure does.
I hope that he's inspired by the courage of his teacher here, Susan, and that he joins her courageously in standing up against his masters.
Let's go to Chris in Tallahassee, actually, where all those terrible laws are made. Chris, you're listening to WVFT there in Tally. Well, good evening. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, thank you. Where we also have a Walton Childs High School. I just find it interesting that we're testing more and more and more days out of the school year to the point where we're teaching in the classroom for test preparation, and yet we're teaching less and less and less material.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 45. If I go back and find a spelling book or an English book or some kind of reading comprehension type book from my youth, it's creepy, the difference in my son's books and the books I had. And then, of course, you go back and get my dad's books, and that,
Why? What's creepy?
kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
what's creepy about it?
What's creepy is that the math books of the 1950s, 1960s look like college textbooks of today. It seems like the material is dumbed down, and it's not the quality of education we once had, yet we're testing more and more and more. And when I was in school, we had one test at the end of the school year to measure what you learned as a child and where you should be the next year, not where your teacher should be, or if you're too smart, then the rest of the class needs to be taught less next year, so that it was done to make sure that the student was learning aptly. And
that's interesting. There are a lot of people who have made that observation that the school system has dumbed down over the years, and I think there's something to that. I really do. I don't think it's because the teachers are trying to dumb people down.
I don't think the teachers get a chance to
Absolutely not.
teach.
Well, I don't think teachers get in the profession to not teach,
Right.
as the same way that doctors don't get into medicine and spend the time and effort and money it takes to be a doctor, to not save lives or cure diseases.
Yeah, absolutely. But when they get into the job, they don't know going into it how bureaucratic it's going to be and how, dumb rules they're going to have to follow and stupid tests they're going to have to give out and forms and paperwork and whatever other nonsense they have to deal with from these administrations and these state bureaucrats. Thanks for the call tonight, Chris. Appreciate hearing from you. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. So that's it. A lot of teachers get in with the intention of educating. but then they find out they're in a lot of ways hamstrung by the system. And it's really tragic. And it's the kids that suffer as a result. So best thing you can do is keep your kids out of the government schools. That's probably the best
My
thing
plan.
you can do. More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.